Today's reading, Psalm 27, David's confident triumph song of confidence. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When evildoers assail me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and foes, they shall stumble and fall. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war rise up against me, yet I will be confident. One thing I asked of the Lord, this I seek, to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord, and to inquire in his temple. For he will hide me in his shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of his tent. He will set me high on a rock. Now my head is lifted up above my enemies all around me, and I will offer in his tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing and make melody to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud. Be gracious to me and answer me. Come, my heart says, see his face. Your face, Lord, do I seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You who have been my help, do not cast me off. Do not forsake me, O God of my salvation. If my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will take me up. Teach me your way, O Lord, and lead me on a level path because of my enemies. Do not give me up to the will of my adversaries, for false witnesses have risen against me, and they are breathing out violence. I believe that I shall see goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong, and let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord.
As I was preparing the sermon for this morning, one of my life's companions came and sat with me for a bit and helped give me some inspiration. And that life's companion is Martin Luther King, Jr. When I was in seminary, I would listen to his sermons all the time, and I've read virtually everything he has written or has been written about him. So he was helpful in guiding me through the word that I bring today, and I want to give proper attribution. Now, in his sermon, Unfulfilled Dreams, he makes the observation that God does not judge us solely by the individual deeds or actions in our lives, but rather by our lives in their totality, the arc of our lives. He was trying to deal with the reality that these lives of ours, so filled with joy and disappointment, are simply too rich to be reduced to just something or other. The entire arc of our lives is simply too rich. King preached this sermon the last year of his life, when the threat of death was constant, the backlash to his opposition to the war in Vietnam was growing, his personal life was in shambles. I can't help but hear in these words almost a plea for those last months not to be that which defined his life, but rather just part of the story. A plea that, when remembered, his life would be, as he said, judged in its totality and found to be a life for which we are better for his having lived it. Now, I thought about that for this sermon this morning, because today we celebrate and we remember the lives of people who we are better for having them lived those lives. We celebrate and remember those people who shaped and made us who we are, the ones whose gestures and peculiarities we find ourselves rehearsing in our daily lives. I was visiting two of my cousins who I grew up with the other day, and we all have a closet full of plaid shirts. Now, it's not that either of us particularly like plaid shirts, but the men who raised us always wore them. And so we always have that peculiarity as a remembrance. The ones whose turns of phrase we hear coming unexpectedly out of my mouth. I mean, I'm sure all of you, no matter how old you are, every now and then you'll say something and wonder, when did your mother come into the room? We remember the ones without whom our own lives are not fully explicable. So the people who made us, that if you don't know them, you can't possibly know us in our fullness, in our ways. Now today, I think we are invited to celebrate the lives of those we loved, even if our sharing was only for a part of that life. I mean, it takes a lot to come to the realization that no matter how intimate your relationship is, the other individual has a life, and they have a full life, and they have things that they think about that don't include you. They have time that they spend with friends that they're not spending talking about you, that they have places to go to enjoy. So, for instance, I don't like to preach about myself often, but I will. I give myself a treat once a month to go to Taco Bell and get a number 5. And the only thing I think at that moment is I'm not going to tell Caesar. So no matter how intimate we are with people, they fully have lives of their own. And sometimes it's hard for us to appreciate this. Now, appreciating these lives in their fullness and recognizing this, I think does two things. First, it frees their lives to be whatever they were. Not what we wished they were, not what we hoped they were, but simply for what they were. And it frees us in a way to hold on to the whole of them, even if parts of them become challenging. In my mother's last year, she struggled with Alzheimer's and dementia. Those years were some of the hardest years of my life. And sometimes it was hard for me to remember the 55 years that had come before, because those years were so hard. Remember those 55 years when her love made me, and without which my world was not complete. Now, in remembering her whole life, the joys, the struggles, the victories, and the love, alongside of the challenges of dementia and Alzheimer's, I was once again able to be made whole by who she was to me and what her life had been. So by us recognizing that people have full lives and not just pieces of them, we don't get caught up in a piece of that life, no matter how difficult it is. It's simply a part of the whole story, and it's simply a part of the arc of the whole story. So while our remembrance of those that we loved will always be in vignettes of memory, little glimmers of things that we remember, time spent together, joys and habits we had with one another, we honor our loved ones best by remembering the arc of their entire lives, having been fully what their lives were, to them and to us. Now, this also allows us to accept and celebrate that no matter how intimate our relationships, there are and were dimensions of the lives of our loved ones of which We only have faint glimmers. As I said earlier, there are people, places, experiences, important to who they were, that are unbeknownst to us. Not because they were hiding anything, but it's just the nature of human life. Now, one of the most important relationships, of which we only get a glimmer most times, was their relationship with God. For many of us gathered here today, we don't wear our religion on our sleeve. We don't wear our faith on our sleeve. We don't often go out and broadcast to the world how God has done right by me this week, or how God has cared for me. We keep those and share it with friends, but we also share it in the ways that we live our lives. We don't wear it on our sleeve, and for me, I don't wear it around my neck. If anybody ever tells you they saw me with a collar on, they are lying. I am a Congregationalist, and if I put a collar on, my neck starts to itch. We carry our faith. Very many of us here, and the ones whom we love and remember, we carry our faith in the conduct of our lives. Our walk with God is seen in our treatment of others, our strength in times of trial, and the joy we find for others in their good times. For many, our demonstration of the Spirit in the lives that we live is in the care and compassion which takes flesh as we move through the world, leaving a touch and a memory of love and care. That's how we give witness to God moving and living in our lives. I suspect that many remembered here today, whose names we will speak shortly, in the arc of their lives, had similar walks with God. Now, while sometimes, but not often spoke of, God was the strength of their lives. I suspect that many of the parents and grandparents remembered here today leaned on God through times of depression and times of war. I am sure I'm not mistaken that many a spouse, friend, or sibling found the courage to face sickness and disease because they found a hiding place in God's love. And in times of trouble, when it seemed that a host had encamped around them, they held on because of the hope they would see deliverance while they were yet in the land of the living. Now, this call to remembrance that we have today, to remember those that we love, when the fullness of their lives, respecting that their walk with God was something that they showed the world, even if they didn't talk about it, that their walk with God was something that shaped who they were in showing love and kindness, even if they didn't answer the question, so how are you, saint? Oh, I'm blessed and highly favored. Even if they didn't do that, they were still walking with God. So this call to remembrance is not just an invitation to a fuller remembrance of those who we name today, who we love. While important, I don't think that does justice to their lives, because I think this call to remembrance is so much more. It is to remember their lives so that we might find strength to live our own. Remembering their lives so that we might find courage for facing the difficulties of the moment. Remembering their lives so that even in our own quiet ways, we can find and be a help to others as they navigate these shoals of life. But we do this not only for ourselves. There are generations who come after us, some who trod the earth as we do, who need the witness of our lives to gain strength for these times. So we're not just remembering the saints of old so that they can give us strength. We're remembering them so that we can remember for ourselves what it means to give strength to the generations that yet come behind us. What it means to give strength to people who can feel the power of God in their lives, but are sometimes looking for words to describe it. So that we can give witness to what it means to live in a more excellent way, in choosing goodness and hope, no matter how dark the evening. They need to see people who have walked with God for a long time, and God has brought them through. Some of you who were on my search committee may remember when we had dinner together. I said specifically that one of the things I liked about this church was that I would be ministering to folk who had been walking with God for a long time, folk who had been depending on God for a long time, and that I could find comfort and strength in that. And so also I call us to do that as a church. So this Remembrance Sunday, we remember our loved ones not just for ourselves, but so that the memory of their lives might be a blessing for generations to come. And let us rededicate ourselves that as their lives have been a blessing to us, we will live our lives so that it will be a blessing to the next generation. We will live our lives so that little group of children walking up the aisle will always know that there were people who took God's love and gave it flesh, and that gives them the inspiration to do the same. Amen.